Hi, I'm Amy Ratcliffe with Blastoff Comics, and today we are talking to Len Wein.
Hi there.
Thank you for letting us invade your space and cuddle with your dog.
My pleasure. I usually charge for that, so you guys are really lucky.
Free licks. I love it. That did not sound right. But
No, this is Dexter, for those who need to know.
I'd like to go back to the beginning, back to Thursday.
Wow. Oh.
Back, not the beginning of time.
Oh, thank God. It's going to be a long interview.
Back to the beginning, Thursday afternoon tours at DC Comics with Marv Wolfman.
Wow.
How did you get your art samples in front of people
Dex.
who could make decisions about hiring you?
Persistence. As simple as that. Back in the Neanderthal days, when I started in, being a comic book fan, Marv Wolfman was an old childhood friend of mine, and I discovered that DC Comics on Thursday mornings gave a tour. A lovely man named Walter Hurlichek, who used to run part of the production department, would, at 11 o'clock every Thursday morning, whoever was in the lobby, he would give them a tour of the offices. Here's the people, here's how things work, here's how we do this, why are you still here? Every month we look at you and the two of you are here. But that's pretty much it. Was persistence. We give up. We both skip school on Thursday once a month.
Completely worthy, I think.
Yeah. My teachers weren't thrilled, nor his. We were at different schools together. But we went until they got to know us, literally. And then finally, at one point, one summer, they said, look, if you're going to be around here all the time anyhow, you guys want to be unpaid interns. We have garbage that needs storing out. We need things that need cleaning up. Come and do that. Yeah, sure.
Sign me up.
Yeah. So we did that for a summer. This is back in the very early days, before comic fandom was really very well organized. And one of our jobs was to throw away old artwork.
Oh.
Original art from the 40s.
Oh.
All kinds of stuff. And we went, sure, we'll do that. And what basically we did, this was Marv's idea, I credited him with that, was he would very carefully cut between the panel borders. So he didn't cut the artwork where he could. I mean, every so often Saul Harrison, who was at that point the head of the production department at DC, would see us doing that and go, no, like this! You just went and watch him cut up some Joe Kubert Hawkman splash page from the 40s or something, and your heart would stop. But we saved an extraordinary amount of stuff because they threw it out. We promptly went to the garbage right after we left it up and collected all of it we could and restored all of it we could. But both of us wanted to be in the business, and we actually didn't really think we had a chance at DC initially. So we started to put together samples of work that we did together. We had done a lot of fanzine work together. Mostly stuff that Marv wrote and I drew. And we put it together for Dick Giordano over at Charlton Comics. And to show you how fast we were, by the time we finished our samples, Dick had moved to DC.
Nice timing.
Yes, perfect. So we said, all right, we'll just take him over there. He knows his own characters. He knows what the stuff will look like. And, I mean, we were real pros. We just showed up at the office one day, didn't make an appointment, didn't do anything, just, here's our portfolio. And discovered, of course, that Dick was not in that day, because we're geniuses. But as we're standing there in the middle of the lobby, as John D. Donald once wonderfully put it, looking like Smokey the Bear watching all the forest burn down, not knowing what to do next. Suddenly, Carmine Infantino, who was editorial director at that time, came back from lunch with Joe Orlando. Again, we knew them, they knew us. Oh, kids, what are you guys doing here today? Oh, we came to show our samples to Mr. Giordano, but he's not here. And I've never forgotten Carmine put his arm around Joe's neck and says, well, you show my samples to my buddy Joey here. If he likes them, you're in. And we went, okay. So the samples went back. Well, we sat in the lobby for an hour growing hundreds of years older waiting.
Sure.
And Joe finally came out and looked at this stuff and says, you know, the art shows promise, but it's not ready yet. Not what, but I like your writing, which was really Marv's writing, not mine. He said, if you guys want to submit samples to House of Mystery, I'm doing this new anthology book, I would love to see what you got. I was a writer all this. I went, great. I went home to put together a half dozen ideas. Marv went home and put together a half dozen ideas. Separately, not as a team, weirdly enough, just each of us. And Joe bought stories from both of us. That's how I started.
Nice.
I mean, I would have been happy to take a job stapling the books together just to
get in. Sure.
Exactly.
That's a great attitude to have too, and I like that you just embrace that. I'm going to write now. Yep. That's what I'm going to do.
That's what he wants to buy. That's what I'm going to do.
Nice. And do you think, because nowadays I've heard creators kind of feel like they're like that DC basically has barriers, like it's hard to pitch them. Do you think there's like the same accessibility, like even with, I think about the presence of like so many creators and editors online, that kind of opens some doors. But do you think there's that level of what you got back then available now?
No, but there were more places to come from. The technology of the time, what we've got now, the fact that I frequently work with people I've never met in countries I probably never go to, just because you can do it electronically.
True.
Changes that aspect. The samples are easier to get to the people in many ways. I think what you gain is accessibility. What you lose is personality.
Maybe you don't have as much face-to-face interaction.
Many years ago, somebody once told me something I've never forgotten, and said, there are three things you need to be a professional and successful. You actually only need to be any two of these three, and you have a career. You need to be A, really good at what you do. B, always on time. C, fun to work with. I managed to do A and C most of the time. And I think that's part of it. You lose the aspect of getting to know a person as a person. There are people I've worked with over the years who, in some places, aren't quite as good as other people. But God, I love to work with them.
Makes a difference.
It's a big part of the job. So you lose that electronically. And I think that's the only difference. But you can get things. Also, you can't really get away with lying through your teeth about where you are in your deadlines. It's easy electronically.
That's true.
The old days, I used to say, oh, it's in the mail. It should be there. Or it's here. My favorite was the days when we would fax things, where I would say, script's finished, I'm faxing it now. And actually, I'd only written up to like half of page 17. And I would print off a page that stopped like literally in the middle of a line, and then just fax the whole thing, as if I had faxed everything. And I sent you the whole thing. What happened? Oh, it stops at page 17. Oh, I'll get it. They gave me the 3 hours I needed to finish the script.
That works.
It worked. Well, then.
And then now you're like, I emailed it.
Yeah.
Well, you can email that again in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
No, I can't.
I can email in 3 hours.
The email's broken until 3 hours from now. Yeah, it's harder to get.
Yeah, it's tough. So we gain and we lose.
As with many things. So you started with DC, obviously, but you moved on to write and edit for Marvel, IDW, Bongo, Penny Farthing, and probably many others that I'm leaving out. Were some publishers easier to work with, or that more fit your style than other publishers?
The majority of what I've done over the years has been for DC. It was always home. Even before I became professional, I would go up there every week to visit them. I knew everybody. I liked Marvel a lot. Those days especially. In the early 70s, Marvel was the Wild West.
Yeah, that was such an exciting time in comics. Just such a buzz to be around that.
Just to produce. I remember when I was editor-in-chief, sitting in my office one day, which was really kind of a room inside the bullpen proper. And guys in suits came in. Guys in suits were never good. Not in our world. When I started, everybody wore suits. It was a business. But by the time my generation came in, they were happy if we wore pants to the office. It was a whole different world. And the business guy from upstairs came down and said, we just went over the books. We need 6 more books on the schedule to average things out. Make that happen. So I took the staff to lunch. We sat down and kibitzed for 3 hours. Came back to the office. We had 6 new books we'd invented. We figured out who was going to write them, who was going to draw them. 2 months later, they were on the stands.
Wow.
When I was at DC, and I did the Nevermore project, the Batman Edgar Allan Poe team up, it took 3 years from the day that I pitched it for it to finally get on the schedule.
Bit of a difference.
Bit of a difference. I had to go through 45 different people. All of a sudden, in the old days, what was Captain Picard's line? Make it so.
It happened.
Yeah, just get it out. And so we did. the universe has evolved. I mean, certainly fiscally.
Yeah.
I start, I don't know, about 7, 8 years ago, I suddenly realized that I had made more that year in residuals and royalties and sorts of other things than I had in actual stories I'd written.
Wow.
And I felt terribly guilty. And my wife, God bless her, was the smartest woman in the world, said, idiot, you're supposed to do that.
Yes, this is how it works.
That's how the career works. You spend the first half of your career producing the work, and the second half of the career living off it.
Benefiting from it, sure.
I went, oh yeah? Oh, okay.
So it's okay.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Well, that also, when our house burned down 3 years ago, coincidentally, my next quarterly check on creator residuals, I get different checks for different things. Every quarter I get a check for my reprints and creator parts of things in comics. And every quarter I get a check for my characters used in other things. And Paul Levitz, who was publisher at DC at the time, and an old and dear and very smart friend, said to me, when I first created this character, he said, get a creator's contract. And I said, it's Lucius Fox. It's a guy in a suit. Who cares? He says, you never know, get a contract. And The Dark Knight had bid out the previous spring, and this was the quarter where I would get my first check off of his participation. And as I like to say, I get a very tiny little piece of the action from that movie, but it's a very tiny little piece of $1 billion.
Yeah.
So the check showed up, and I went, we're good. Don't worry about it, honey. We can build a new house.
You're set. And he has become such a big part of that, more widely known part of the Batman mythology now because of the films.
Yeah, Morgan Freeman. God.
Yeah, and I was going to say, how do you feel about his portrayal?
Well, when Paul told me they had hired him, I said, you couldn't find a good actor?
You had to get that guy?
Oh my God! He's one of the great actors of our time. I adore him. And a lovely, like most of them, when I met him at the premiere, a lovely gentleman.
That makes me happy.
Very polite. My wife danced with her at the party. It was very sweet.
That's really sweet, and I do like the character that he portrays.
Yeah.
Well, I like him.
Well, the first issue when I started writing Batman, it's a monthly book as opposed to occasional issues here and there. The first thing I thought of was, okay, you've got this man in a multi-billion-dollar corporation who spends half of his time swinging all over the city in a batsuit. Somebody's got to be running that operation.
He's kind of busy, yes.
Yeah, so that's where Lucius came from the idea of somebody running the business.
And you've obviously created some great characters. And what do you go through the process when you're creating a character like Lucius Fox? Do you think just as far as the issue at hand, the series, or do you flesh his personality out, hopefully for the long term?
I usually start with, let's see how he goes. Characters evolve everywhere. Watch any TV series and watch the first episode of the show, then watch the 6th episode of the show. You will discover half the time one or two characters aren't there anymore. This character's personality has totally changed. Mm-hmm. Every part of development, especially when you're working in developing monthly books, where you've got to have another issue out next month, come hell or high water, you don't have the time to do that much thinking in advance. You see how they come, see how the artist interprets them, see how he feels as you go along. Suddenly you go, nah, he wouldn't do that, even though he did it 6 issues ago.
Yeah, he's
so
changed.
Stop doing that. Yeah. It's anything that's monthly or periodical, because TV shows are weekly, is a constant development state. You never know who's going to show up. The Fonz, that's one of my favorite examples. They wouldn't let him have more than one line of dialogue in the first Happy Days, but at the end of it, he was the star of the show.
Yeah,
Urkel.
that's what people remember.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, Urkel, wow.
Urkel was a one-shot. Urkel was named after the producer's childhood best friend, who called him afterwards and said, what did I ever do to you? And he said, I'm sorry, I didn't expect him to ever come back. It was a one-shot. I thought I'd give you a little shout-out. I didn't mean for him to take over this show.
And now you're what he's remembering.
Yeah, now you're world famous. I'm terribly sorry, I'll never do that again.
I will leave you out. And what's it like to write? I kind of think as comics, the world and writing as a sandbox. I don't mean that in a bad way, because not great things go in a sandbox, but all the characters are there waiting for people to take them out and use them, if they're allowed. What's it like to write characters that other people have created?
Intimidating.
Yeah.
When I first started writing Spider-Man, for example, I said, me? But only 2 people have ever written Spider-Man. And Stan looked at me and said, well, now you're the 3rd.
So, okay.
At that point, that was something you tried to rise to be writing Spider-Man. Nowadays, sometimes that's where people get their starts. The theory being, well, it's Spider-Man, you can't ruin them.
And that's one perspective.
Yeah. But people ask me that about other people writing my characters, and I say, where do I come off with the audacity to be upset with people writing my characters when I've written so many other people's characters?
Sure.
It's only fair.
And of the ones you've written, was there a character that you found out you got to write and that you just pinched yourself because you couldn't believe it was actually happening? Like
Spider-Man initially.
Spider-Man, yeah.
And Batman.
Yeah, Batman.
Some of that's Superman, but Spider-Man and Batman.
And are they among your favorite comic book characters?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I had a lot of fun with Spider-Man. In fact, when I did the Blue Beetle book for DC, I essentially sat down to write the Spider-Man book I didn't think Marvel was doing anymore. Spider-Man had changed so much that the happy-go-lucky, let's have fun, and everything's just giggles, superhero was gone. So I said, all right, now it's him. And I wrote that book. He's a bug.
Go with that.
You'll do with that.